had a call with somebody who actually deals with virtual augmentation AI. Opportunities here for AI, and it's really, really scary.
But as long as you're at least learning about one, you could always kind of pick up the other, or you can learn about both in tandem. But don't ignore it. Like that's the biggest takeaway here is don't ignore what's going on around you. Don't be dumb and make sure that you're staying up to date.
You're going to be ran over. And I think that's a pretty crazy realization.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode here on the 1% podcast. I'm your host, Vin.
And Shane.
And we today are going to discuss with you the expansion of AI, how Skynet might already be here. The Terminator is probably already happening. They just haven't come back from the future yet. And we need to prepare. So how are we going to prepare? I'm not too sure. Shane actually has a few insights. He's going to lead this podcast today because he's been telling me that he's already preparing to have the laser guns working because he knows some things are going to go down. So Shane, why don't you take it away and let us know, how do we prepare for the Terminator?
Well, I'm just kind of bummed that I don't have, John Connor's and Sarah Connor's personal cell number. So we can really prepare. But so my main business, I'm sure most of you guys know by now, is a virtual assistant agency. Now, virtual assistants are amazing, right? It's employment. You actually get to deal with somebody to offset these tasks. But when we're talking about AI, when we're talking about what the capabilities are now and what the capabilities are going to be in the future, it's pretty surreal. And as a business owner, you constantly have to evolve and expand. Otherwise, you're going to be phased out. So I actually had a call, and I knew it was kind of here, but I didn't really know to what degree. I had a call with somebody who actually deals with virtual augmentation AI. And what that really means is they can actually take me that looks like me, sounds like me, and I can essentially answer questions, which is crazy. I can make phone calls. I can have a conversation, which when you actually put that into reality on a specific, governmental rate or anything like that, it's pretty crazy of what's actual legal evidence and what's not. Anyways, besides all that, the crazy thing is when you look at this and compare it to virtual assistants, what can they actually do? Can they build a CRM? Can they send email blasts? Can they do cold calling? Can they do graphic design? Can they do accounting? Can they do all of those tedious, mundane tasks that I have my virtual assistant service for my clients? Can they do that? And the answer is yes to a degree, but in the next 12 months, it's going to be pretty nuts. And, Vin and I were talking about essentially what can they not do? They'll be able to replace so many jobs, blue collar, white collar, computer technicians. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of what they actually can do. So it really comes down to, the human interaction. Do people care about human interaction over costs? And I think the answer is yes right now. But when you really have something that's sophisticated, that I could actually teach somebody on, that is significantly less money, it just becomes harder and harder to say, yes, I want a human interaction. And I think that's what I am so, nervous about, not for my business, because we'll evolve, we'll expand, and we'll figure out ways to utilize this to my best advantage. But what I'm nervous and scared about is the world, right? If this is the start of something and robots and AI is literally a real thing that I've just witnessed, that I watched somebody, he literally grabbed myself in. It was me. I was looking at me. He sounded like me. He asked regular questions and I was answering it. I'm not joking. Like, that's exactly how it was. And if you can do that, where does it stop? I mean, it's endless opportunities here for AI, and it's really, really scary. Mm-hmm. So I just want people to really understand where it's kind of at right now. I want them to be open to it. You have to understand that it's not regulated to the degree that it should be, and it's kind of scary out there. And I wanted to be real here for a second. I told Vin that I had a scarier call in the beginning, but AI is here and I don't see it going anywhere. And for business owners, like me, you need to learn how to adapt and evolve and make things easier and more simplistic. And if not, you're going to be ran over. And I think that's a pretty crazy realization.
He's not wrong, but I also look at it as I actually saw that the other day. I have I'm part of this other mastermind group, and somebody put it in the chat about maybe a week or two ago before I came out to Vegas, and it was cool, right? Like the guy was just sitting there, he was talking, you could see everything you just said, and it was also interesting for a few reasons. One, I was able to tell like the guy's a robot, you know, because it's good, but it's not that good yet.
Right.
It's getting there. But number two is it also just made me think, but this isn't actual human connection. And I do believe right now there's going to be a hype around it. And I do believe everybody wants to get in on it. I believe a lot of people are going to look to start reducing costs by doing certain things like this, right? But I also look at it in the sense that you could do that, but the quality won't be there. You can replace your copywriter with ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is not going to be as good as your copywriter. It's just not. See, what we're going to start seeing a shift of is, I believe, the case for quality versus quantity. Do you know how many books have been published since ChatGPT became a thing? Like a absurd amount. There's more books published now than ever before in history because anyone can write a book and you can prompt it. But it doesn't mean that they're good books. It doesn't mean that they're actually impactful books. It doesn't mean, and this is what people really look for, it doesn't mean that there's any personal touch or stories. And when we look at humans, humans are driven by emotion. Emotion is fueled by connection. Connection is found in stories. Your robot will never have the stories to tell people. You will never have stories to tell people if everything's done by a robot. And that's what I look at. Is it concerning? Sure. I mean, I told Shane too. I was like, I'm probably going to be replaced by a robot one day. I mean, look, right? If they could create my face, my voice, and it could ask you questions, why do you need a coach? You don't, right? Or maybe you do. I don't know. But I do believe that there is something to still be said for the fact that it's important to have that connection. And this is also why I believe, and if you're not doing this and you're a business owner, this is something you need to start pivoting to, is you need to build community. No longer will the world start caring about how powerful your brand is if there's no community revolving around it. Because of the fact that everything is going to become so disingenuine, there needs to be a good community. And here's the reason why. Is you're looking at the capabilities of, we saw it before, right? Is these things that they call deep fakes, where it was a video and a voice of something that never happened. However, now it's going to become even more advanced than that. Now it's going to become entire, like full body videos where you could see that they didn't just put the face on a weird body, things like that. Now it's going to become your body, your face, your voice. The only thing that people are going to be able to know about you is your stories and your integrity. Because now, see, so somebody could take Shane's voice and his face and they could call his wife and say something terrible. And he could FaceTime her. And she would never even know. However, what Shane then needs to bank on is that his wife knows the kind of man he is, to know that that isn't him.
And we
To
have
know that.
secret code words.
Exactly. We got to come up with code words. Like, we're become a secret society. But,
Ours is going to be pineapple then.
oh, really? Okay, cool. I like pineapple. So, pineapple's interesting. Did you know it's eating you? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But that's a real thing. So, but I do believe that this is the way of society. Is now we got to look at, if you're not building your image, if you're not building your brand, anyone can put out anything and people will believe it because people won't know you. The importance of community and personal branding now is more important than ever before. And my good friend Mike, who is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author around branding, has the same sentiment. Actually, that's where I've had a lot of these conversations and started learning about what is going to be the wave of the future with AI. And that's a big part of his belief. And I can't say I disagree. Knowing that someone could take my face, my voice, literally make my body do things in videos, people have to just know who you are. They have to, because if they don't, there's going to become a lot of problems. So my best advice to any business owner is that you need to develop your brand, your community, and make sure people know you. Period.
So I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. I just want to put some other sentiment towards it as well.
Yes.
As far as how many books have come out and screenplays, I totally agree as far as quality versus quantity. But ChatGPT came out this year, and look at the ways it's already expanded, right? Technology has vastly boomed, and we're in this era, and it's not going anywhere, and it's vastly evolving.
Right.
Imagine the things that it can do in 12 more months. So I definitely agree with, what humans have versus robots as far as a soul and emotion and a connection and relationships. And that's what we need to do together as far as a business and as a whole as society is kind of latch onto that, because that's pretty much the main differences. But if we're looking at this from a business standpoint, and you're looking at how you need to change your mindset, and that's really what I want you guys to focus on, because as a whole society, we're going to be in this together, and who knows what the future is going to be. And I know the jokes came out for Skynet, but who knows? That's not going to be the story of this. What I really want for my advice is, this is coming. It's here. I've witnessed it firsthand, which is crazy to me. And I've heard about it, but when you actually see it, it's on a different scale.
Right.
You as a business owner, you need to understand that, and you need to know, how can this change and grow my business where I'm still going to be a necessity to people, and that's what's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1% is going to be even lower. It's going to be completely demolished. There's no longer going to be that. It's going to be fractions of percentages. And I've been backed into so many different corners where I had to revamp styles, SOPs, and Vin's well aware, if something's not working, and I preach this all the time, which 95% of the things don't work, you need to focus on the 5% of things that do work and double down your efforts there. Me realizing that this is coming, I'm incorporating this, and I'm going to be testing it out, and I'm going to be changing my mindset, changing my ideas, because I have a well-established business, very well established.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that a trigger can happen and I'm just going to go under. It's not going to happen, which is great. However, something like this could put me out of business. And so I need to evolve, and I need to realize this and adapt. So my advice would be that in regards to business.
I think that, that's kind of a play on the conversation we were having last week, right? Is the ability to adapt. Successful people adapt. And I can't disagree with that. I think that is the way that not only successful people run a business, but that's how successful people get through life. It's constant adaptation. And when we sit and we stay too stuck and we decide, well, I want to do it my way because of stubbornness, it's like, all right, well, you're also going to wind up going under eventually. And that's why most businesses fail. It's either they fail because there's no need for what they have, and so it's already going to fail, or they fail because they weren't able to change with the times.
Their closed-mindedness. That's really what.
Very close-minded. And that's the biggest thing. So if you're a business owner or you're somebody who's growing up in this time, like I gotta say, it's actually going to be really interesting, right? Think about it. Like you and I, we have kids right now that are growing up during this time. And they're going to be growing up immersed in Web3, which I still don't understand, by the way. They're going to grow up knowing AI. Like, I don't know. If my daughter, which I don't think she's going to go to school because I'm very against sending my child to school, but if she were to, for some reason, go to school, I'm sure she's going to learn how to write papers with AI. Like, I don't think she would physically have to sit there. Like, picture it. My daughter's 16. So now we're, 16 years, 17 years from now, let's just say she's going to sit there. I can't imagine a school being like, okay, you need to write a 10-page paper now, go home and handwrite it, or go home and type it on the computer. Like, I can't imagine that being a thing. So I'm very interested to see what in the world are our kids going to grow up with. How are they going to grow up? It's going to be so strange. It's going to be so freaking strange, man.
And that's what I'm talking about as a society, and I, just like everybody else, I knew that it was there. And, to a degree, I didn't, just like the news for a lot of people, I didn't want to go too much in depth because it's scary. It's a scary world out there. Um, However, realizing it and understanding it and using that way to, your advantage as far as a business standpoint, that's what you need to do.
Hmm.
As a society, we will see what happens, right? We're in a very interesting place, right now as far as our economy is concerned, but I don't want to dive into that. But I feel like I'm just at repetitive at this point, but it's AI is here. You need to understand it. You need to realize how it can benefit you and the alternative. And growing from there, I think is going to happen. But I agree with you on a, personal standpoint. My daughter will be born December 6th, and my son, who is already 2.5, it's going to be an interesting world for them.
Yeah.
But the best that we can do as parents is get them prepared.
I,
This is reality.
yeah. I'm curious
This is
too, right? Like, I've come to learn that very successful people typically don't give their kids a lot of access to the internet. When you look at like the CEO of Apple or the CEO of TikTok, etc., they all limit their kids' access to the internet. They all limit their ability to be on screens, things like that. This might, I don't know, right? So this might sound almost conspiracy theory-ish, which I'm not trying to. I'm just curious. I'm wondering how do we best raise our kids? Because I also have that intention, right? I know why successful people do that with their children because they want to foster their ability to grow as individuals. They don't want them getting addicted to technology. They don't want them sitting there taking in the wrong kinds of information, etc. And now I'm wondering, as society really starts changing to adapt all of this technology and this AI, what will be the way that you really start successfully raising a child? Is it going to be giving them the VR device? Is it going to be keeping them off of the VR device? I mean, you already have these big CEOs keeping their kids off the phones. Are they going to stop them from going in the VR headsets? How is that going to work? I have a theory that it's going to be similar because I know why they do it. I'm just curious. I wonder what the world is going to start adapting to as well in that regard.
I mean, it's crazy to see over the last 15 years these new norms, right? That was actually here. My very first sales job was Verizon Wireless in 2007,
Hmm.
and this is before iPhones existed, which is crazy to say out loud. That was 2007. iPhones was not a thing. iPods were a thing, but iPhones were not a thing.
Thousand
This
songs in
is
your
when
pocket.
this is where you had PDAs and Blackberries. You could just start getting, emails on your your phones and devices, and you could play little games on your Blackberries and PDAs. I'm assuming a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. But visualize that for a second. Where have we grown in the last 16 years since 2007 compared to email, text messaging, the World Wide Web, 3G, 4G, 5G? Like technology has vastly grown,
Yeah.
and we've kind of just immersed our kids to it. It's not the 90s anymore. It's not the 80s anymore, where it's simpler times and it's family bonding and it's not like that anymore.
Right.
Now, people raise their kids different ways, and I still believe in those tactics, which is I still have family meals at least 2 to 3 times a week because that's my time where I get to connect and grow with my family, and it's bonding time. It's great. And we limit our TV usage as much as we can. And same thing with my son. He can only watch one movie a day. And right, he's 2.5, so movies are a big deal with him. But imagine that an hour and a half, 2 hour movies, that's it. That's all he gets. Other than that, it's playtime, it's bonding, it's going outside, it's going to the park, it's human interaction, it's enjoying each other's time. That's how it should be, is those simplistic ways. That's how I'm going to teach my family. I'm not going to tell anybody how they should teach theirs, but that's how I teach, mine. And I'm excited to see when they grow up how things kind of shift and change. But I'll tell you right now, if I don't like something, it's going to be limited or it's going to be blocked off if I think it's going to be in their best interest.
I agree with that. I mean, I pretty much do something similar, right? Me and my daughter, we have it that she only gets like 1 to 2 episodes per day of TV. So if she wants to watch Mickey Mouse, she get an episode. If she wants to watch Sesame Street, she gets an episode. That's pretty much it. And then it's like she's got to play, she's got to read, she's got to hang out with us. Like it just kind of is what it is. And you want to foster that interaction. So I could really see how it's going to be a very challenging time, not just for business owners, but I think for everybody. How are we
Agreed.
going to direct just even interacting with friends, interacting with family, interacting with children? You know, I just got my mom an iPad for her birthday, and she was ecstatic because, and I quote, "I can't live without my iPad." You know, like I get what she's saying. My mom is on the on the older side now. She's in her 60s and she doesn't really have a ton to do. She's retired, etc. But I'd still like to think that there are a bunch of things that you could do aside from go on the iPad, right? So I knew that it would make her happy. I know that that's where she spends a lot of her time. And it's interesting to see though, because we think that technology is just being adapted by the younger generation, but the older generation is adapting it as well. They're just adapting it differently. Like my mom can't live without her iPad, but most people can't live without their cell phone. Most people can't live without their VR headset now. My mom's like, "Oh, I want my iPad." My dad likes his Xbox, funny enough. And so it is very interesting that technology, it's not really leaving people out. It's leaving some people out because they don't want to learn it or they don't want to move forward with it. But it's actually, if you think about it, it's actually encompassing everyone in society from young to old and vice versa. So it's really interesting.
Technology, AI, robots, Skynet. It's who knows what's going to happen, But I think the moral of the story here that Vin and I are both preaching is relationships, connections with family, friends, even business associates, colleagues. That's going to be the thing that shines through, and I absolutely agree with that. However, not being blindsided, not being closed minded, understanding what's happening in this generation, in this world,
Yeah.
and as far as a business standpoint, utilizing that to increase your portfolio is the best advice that we can give together. And I'm excited for the future. I'm scared for the future, but I think that's the best way of looking at it. I mean, that's how you always are. You have to be an optimist, especially as a business owner. Sometimes you're a pessimist, but there's there's good ways of looking at that too. But anyways, I think together, I think that's the best advice and reason that we can come together with.
Yeah. Don't sit there like a schmuck with your head in the sand. This is happening. And the more you try to ignore it, the more you're just going to get screwed. And then you're going to turn around and be like, what the hell happened? Why do I have no money? And can't figure out how to get ahead because you decided you didn't want to learn about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still pretty far behind in Web3 because I'm just having trouble getting into NFTs and DAOs and cryptocurrency and stuff like that. But I'm still figuring out ways to utilize and look at and understand AI. And though they aren't entirely singular, they are still connected in some way. But as long as you're at least learning about one, you could always kind of pick up the other, or you can learn about both in tandem. But don't ignore it. Like that's the biggest takeaway here is don't ignore what's going on around you. Don't be dumb and make sure that you're staying up to date. And I think that's probably our biggest lessons for today.
Being in a room full of people that are, smarter than you in certain subjects, it's always great networking. You don't have to fully understand cryptocurrency, NFTs, AI. I don't have the time to learn everything under the sun. But if I meet somebody that I think is interesting and I want to know more about them, I'm going to talk to the expert. And I would say you guys should do that same thing. Having a basic knowledge about that is great, but talk to an expert and kind of get a full gist just so you can kind of keep up the speed. More importantly, you'll have that person in a contact, hopefully a long-term friend and colleague. That's how Vin and I turned out to be. And it just so happened that we met each other at a dinner and we kept the connection up. And we do that with networking events all the time. And, that's going to be a big crucial thing here, especially in the future. I mean, it's been like that networking in general for hundreds and hundreds of years, but that's going to be the thing that shines through.
100%. Don't discount, like we're saying, don't discount the power of human connection, and don't get left behind because of the fact that you want to discount what's going on in life. Aside from that,
Yeah,
I think today was a pretty interesting day talking about AI and all this good
really.
stuff. So we are going to wrap it up here, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 1% podcast. You can find us on our emails, socials, things like that. I'm Vin, and you could find me at, well, Vincent at vincentandfonte.life if you want to reach out to me directly. You got Shane at the VA group. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the 1% podcast. We will see you next time. Maybe we'll start next time talking about how pineapple's actually eating you and get into some real interesting topics. And then we'll see what the...
Pineapple pizza's making a comeback.
No, we're not talking about pineapple pizza, but Shane loves it that much that he wishes we could. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.